Intro.
This is gonna be an adventure on its own. All the people are gonna come, cause it's time for PeaCrea Live. Mr. Big and
Oh, hello, everybody. Welcome to another episode of Peaceful Creativity Live. This is the online coaching show where we talk about how to have peace of mind, creative expression, change the world around yourself, personal development, and corporate development. Because we also believe that organizations out there in the world need to help change how this society works. And that's what we're all about here in Peaceful Creativity. I'm Davey. That's
No,
Arny over there.
I'm Arny. Hello.
Yeah, hey Arnie. And today's show is all about your mind and mind training and how the mind works. And there's a cute little analogy that Arno came up with that actually I think we heard from one of our friends too, Scott. I think he used to say this
Exactly.
that the mind is like a puppy, and we're going to talk about what that really means because we've made the mind our masters, and it's time to recreate the relationship we have with our own minds, and that's what this show is about. Arnie, why don't you tell us a little bit
Yeah,
more? What's up?
of course. Yeah. So your mind is a puppy. This is what we're going to talk about today. This is a live show. This is called Peaceful Creativity Live for a reason. You guys, maybe you just saw us on Facebook and you came here because you're interested in this topic of your mind is a puppy. Ask us your question. There is a chat box on the right side. We will put it on the screen and we will react to it directly. Share your insights. And if you were like, oh, I wish I would have known earlier about this show today because that's pretty cool, but I have other things planned, then be sure to follow us on Instagram at Peaceful Creativity and subscribe to our YouTube channel. And right now we can jump right into the topic of today. Your mind is a puppy. And David, you said that this is an analogy used by Scott, and you're right. He was talking about our thoughts as puppies, because typically during meditation, especially at an early stage of the meditative path, we consider thoughts as bad and we want to push them away. You know, beginner meditators think, I want to be without thoughts. So when they have a thought, they just push them away. But that's not really the approach. That's not really an efficient approach. And considering them as puppy makes it easier to find them cute, first of all, and welcome them and let them play around and run around and then go away by themselves. So that's where the analogy, that's one of the place where the analogy come from. So,
Okay.
David, you said in the intro that our mind is the master. So why don't you elaborate a little bit on
Well,
that?
I said we make the mind the master in our society because we have our entire society bows down to the logical mind, the analytical mind. You know, when you go to business school, you learn all these analytical decision making techniques. You know, nowhere in the entire business school curriculum that I experienced was, hey, how do you feel about this thing? Do you actually feel good? Does this thing make you happy? Does this work with connect with your values? Does this connect with what your heart is saying? It's not about that when making decisions in the business world. Supposedly, it's all supposed to be completely rational, analytical decisions. But what that, so okay, there's that one aspect. Also, for the last maybe really since Descartes, I think, therefore I am. We've put like that thinking process as the core of our being, you know? Yet when you ask somebody, hey, point to yourself. Hey, Arno, point to yourself right now. Just point to yourself. You point to your mouth. Maybe because there's a camera. Normally what people do is they point to their chest, you know? Nope. But anyway, wherever you point, nobody's pointing up here. Maybe some people like Arno point to your mouth. Maybe because your beard is where your being lives. Your beard is the actual seat of your being. So anyway, most people point to their chest, and that's not a coincidence. You know, who we really are is not in our heads. There's something bigger going on here. There's a level of consciousness going on here that has never been found to live in the mind. In all the brain studies, all the science around the mind, we've never found the seat of consciousness or identity in the mind yet. So where
Yes.
is it really?
So
So that's one thing.
this that's a fantastic pathway to or segue to one thing. We don't script PeaCrea Live, right? This is a live show, and you can ask your question, comment, etc. I said it already. Don't hesitate. So when David asked me to point at myself, it immediately reminded me of an exercise of a philosophical movement or a philosophical / experimental movement, because it's based on experience, which is called the headless way. And there is an exercise where you point at an object, you locate an object in the room or whatever, and you realize that this is an object, that it has a shape, that you can compare it to another. Then you point at a part of your body, like your hands. You realize that this is an object, certain form, shape, color. And then you point at where your head is supposed to be. And when you look not at your finger, but at what the finger is pointing at, then you find nothingness. There is no head. You cannot compare the space. You cannot compare. It has no shape, no form. It's completely different than when you look at various things. So when you ask me, point at yourself, I don't know. I switch into the mode of this exercise, and this brings to something very interesting. That's your mind is a puppy, but where is your mind? Where did the puppy went to hide himself? It's not under the couch. It's where is it? And so that as I found that it's a nice connection to what you were talking about right before.
Yeah, though, that's a great question. Where is the mind? We think the mind exists in the head. And there is a form of our biological mind that exists in the head. But do you know you have 40,000 neurons you have 40,000 memory neurons at the top of your heart in a little P-shaped brain? You have also 100 million neurons in your gut lining your intestine. In fact, those are the oldest form of neurons evolutionarily, are the neurons that lined the intestine. So that's where our mind was before our mind got in our heads. That we have our biological mind, our subconscious, is distributed in the whole body. And that's just one part of our mind. And then there's this other idea of like the higher mind, which maybe we'll get into. But to follow on what I said earlier, we've built a whole society saying like, oh, logical, rational thinking is how we do good things. Yet what that unfortunately misses is the 50 years of human behavioral research, social science research that has shown definitively, unequivocally, that humans are not rational beings. We do not make rational decisions. Our decisions happen on an emotional level, and then our rational mind just explains that decision. We interpret the world on an emotional level, and then the rational mind just explains how that reality makes sense. If so, we're not actually rational thinkers. We are rationalizers. We're rationalizing all the time. But yet we go around thinking that our mind, we have to, our mind is the key and the master. We have to be very careful. And so much of the personal development world is about train your mind, have the right thoughts, So there's something wrong. There's some disconnect here between how we're talking about this. And I think this mind like a puppy analogy is going to help us unpack it and find a better way to work with the mind.
Yes, exactly. Because as often, this is a matter of balance, saying that the mind is this evil master that, everything is based around it and it's controlling everything. That's a bit extreme in my view, because the mind has definitively some good thing and some powers and some part of the reason why our civilization is putting the mind on such a pedestal is that our minds made a lot of cool stuff, a lot of horrible stuff as well, mind you, but a lot of good stuff and solving problems and things like that. So there's definitely a nice side to the mind, which is why the puppy analogy is important, because it's easy to go the other way and be like, no, now I'm all heart and guts. Everything my mind tells me is bullshit. So it's ego, it's bullshit. I'm ignoring it completely. And that's also not the way, So I think the goal is to find a healthy equilibrium between those three or more minds that we have, the brain mind, the heart mind, the gut mind, the higher mind, or however you want to call it. Uh, However, what you said is completely true regarding how we make a decision based on emotion and then we rationalize, and it's not just big decisions. It's like constant decisions. I'm going to take this street instead of this street. First, we make the decision on a neurological level, and it's done. And then our mind is like, oh yeah, because blah 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 blah, and that's that blah 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 that we turn into the explanation on why we do that. And I find it fascinating because it tied to the notion of free will and what's really free will is, because we feel like we are making decision, but as you put it very elegantly, David, we are just rationalizers. So I think that's a fascinating topic to dive into.
Yeah. So let's unpack this a bit. I think one of the first things to talk about is, what is a thought? Where do your thoughts come from? Because if you look at your thoughts, you will notice that you're not controlling them. Anybody who's tried meditation immediately knows you're not controlling your thoughts. Like you try to focus on one thing and a million thoughts come in of what you have to do that day or later that day, right? You try to, and the practice of meditation, isn't about having no thought in the beginning. It's about just noticing that your thinking is going somewhere, and then returning it to your object of focus, whether it's your breath or, silence or whatever. But so who is the one? So if there's all these thoughts happening, but then there's a you that then redirects your focus, what's really going on there? Who's the one thinking?
I love how you're going into the meat of it directly, but it's perfect. It's perfect.
Because so much of personal development is think the right thoughts, control your thoughts, change your thoughts, and the world will change. Now, I actually do think that's true, but the problem is thinking that we control our thoughts. That's not true. You do have, I can purposely think of something right now. I can purposely think of like, I can purposely hold in my mind the image of a white candle. I can purposely decide to say to myself, I'm feeling safe in this moment. I am doing something I love in this moment. I can purposely do that. But what percentage of your thoughts are that? Are you actually consciously saying, I'm going to think this now? So I think that most of the time what's happening is thoughts are just going like crazy in your mind. Something like 90,000 a day, and something like 95% of them are coming from your subconscious, so what the mind is, the biological mind, I'm talking about your brain. I'm talking about your nervous system that's kicking up these thoughts. Your thoughts are like a reflex. They're not, when the doctor hits your leg with a hammer, and your knee kicks out, you can't control that. That's, stimulus response. Well, that's what actually most of your thoughts are. Most of your thoughts are stimulus, and your brain, like a reflex, based on everything you have from the past, based on all your beliefs, based on everything you've learned about what this human life is, based on what people have told you when you were a kid, based on what society has told you when you were a kid. Your brain performs a reflexive action and shoots up a thought. It's a subconscious process, just like it's in your nervous system, just like that is. That's what your brain is doing.
And that's, hearing you say that thoughts are just a reflex that are coming from everything we've experienced since we were born and before. It really makes me think that free will is an illusion. Completely, because like you didn't choose your parents, all right, you didn't choose the school you went to, all right, didn't really choose your friends until a certain age, all right, you didn't choose all these accidents and traffic jam and everything, all these external things. So there are so few things that you actually choose, and that the things that are provoking your thoughts, like your current thoughts, the one you used to decide to do one thing or another, the one we use to decide to do this show, for example, really a part of it is complete, comes from complete randomness, you know. Like the fact that you and I met is completely random. The fact that your thoughts pushed you to this, I think it was a networking event where I think it was a morning how to introduce yourself workshop where we met the first time. So the fact that your thoughts pushed you to go to this place and my thought pushed me to go to this place at the same time, and we connected there. I was like, oh, all right. That's so out of our control that in a way, free will really looks like an illusion when we look at that from this point.
Well,
Which doesn't mean that we shouldn't. Sorry, just
no, go ahead. Yeah.
Not to sound nihilistic or whatever. That okay, nothing matters.
I believe in nothing. Oh no.
Yeah. But it doesn't mean that we cannot continue playing the game, right? Of making decision and trying to do good around us and things like that. But when you look at it from this point of view, it's difficult to argue that it's not an illusion. What do you think about that?
Well, I agree with you that free will does not come from your reflective thoughts. Free will does not come from your normal default thinking. Free will starts when you start to not listen to your thoughts. If free will exists, it starts when you stop listening to your thoughts, because your thoughts are the reflexes. Now, and so let's break this down a little bit. So most people's thoughts all day are negative. You know, negative. I don't mean negative like morally wrong. I just mean they're judging their situation. They're judging themselves. They're judging what's going on as it's not supposed to be happening, or this isn't good. It's not perfect. You know, most people are living with brains that are constantly telling them they're not good enough. They made a mistake. This thing that's happening to them is not good enough. Oh, that thing that they thought was going to happen, it didn't happen. So it's bad. They're going to get disappointed. You know, they have expectations that aren't met for some reason, then that's bad. You know what I mean? So we have all these thoughts in our mind about that are like basically trying to control, because it's a survival mechanism, trying to control the world around us and ourselves. And if something falls outside of those boundaries we think is suitable or okay based on all these programs we have, then we get upset. And the mind is thinking of all these thoughts of how to control the situation. You know, kind of like when, we did that episode on vulnerability and money, when you had that experience where all of a sudden, the people that were paying you some stuff monthly, it was going to disappear, and your mind went into oh my God, I got to write this people, I got to solve this, I got to do this. Your mind went into like a crazy, I have to fix this mode, and that's the survival reflex. These are our reflexive thoughts. So most of our thoughts they're a reflex to stimuli, but what determines what that reflex is? Well, all that negative stuff is coming from your nervous system's learned trauma, your nervous system's learned ways of how the world is dangerous, how it's not safe to be you, it's not safe to be self-expressed, all the ways that your nervous system has learned you'll be rejected, all the ways your nervous system has learned the world, other people are going to take things from you. Basically, everything you're trying to avoid and control against, that's the main source. That's your trauma, and that's the main source of the reflexive action of the mind. Now, of course, you also get some amazing thoughts. Sometimes you'll look at something, you'll just be looking you'll be on the top of a mountain and you'll look and you'll say, oh my God, this is so beautiful. Where does that is also a reflex. That's also your mind. Your mind is taking a stimulus and it's performing a reflex. But what is the source of that reflex? That one is not your traumas. The source of that reflex is coming from your wonder. It's coming from the innate curiosity you have as being a human being. It's coming from your, you might call your deeper self. So what I'm getting at here is your mind is like a translator. Your biological mind is just, there's trauma energy locked in your nervous system. There's trauma information locked in your nervous system. Your mind translate that into things we call thoughts that are like in language, translates that into these thoughts. And those thoughts are often interpreting the world in a very negative way. But then your mind also can translate the energy of maybe, your deeper self, your unconditioned self, the self you were when you were this pure, innocent, beautiful, curious, wondrous, joyous child. Your mind can also translate that energy. And that's where these amazing thoughts come from. So none of those thoughts are you. None of those thoughts are who you are. Your mind is translating energy. And okay, so I just want to, that's a model of the mind that I'm coming from in this conversation. So I need to lay that out there. What do you think about that?
Thank you. That's a great model. And that reinforced the analogy with the puppy, really, because a puppy does some bad stuff, It goes pee on the cushion or destroy stuff with his little teeth. But it also does some beautiful
with its
things,
little teeth, his little cute puppy teeth. Yeah.
But it also does some wonderful things, like it gives you some love out of nowhere, just because you gave him something to eat twice, or whatever. And if you train this puppy, you can train him to be happy being outside, just where it's green, and being joyful of that, and spending more time with you and giving you love and receiving love and having a great time, And I have a dog for 13 years, and she's the best dog in the world, so I know what I'm talking about, And just like that, we can train our mind, which is a neutral tool, almost I want to say, to identify the thoughts and sort them, and then react just on the one that are useful and joyful and good for us and for the people around us. So when those thoughts come as a reflex from our trauma, as you were saying, David, then the mind can be this translator and be like, okay, I see you, I know where it comes from. I'm not going to act upon it. I'm not going to freak out about it. I'm just going to let you go there. And maybe I'm going to send the signal to the person, or let's say to Arno, so that Arno can give some love to these trauma parts. Maybe the thoughts, it will come from, oh my God, fuck, shit, trauma thoughts, goes through the translator, and it will be translated into, you need to give love to this part of yourself that hurt. And then the action would be to do all kind of things that we can do to heal trauma.
Yes. Yes. This is,
but that's just, yes, the image of the translator is a great one.
It's why the mind is trainable, because the mind it's like muscle memory. Okay. Your brain is a biological organ. It works just like muscles work. What is muscle memory? It's your nervous system remembering specific motions. So you can very quickly catch a ball, or very quickly you can drive. Have you ever had the experience of driving somewhere that you drive over and over again, and then you were all of a sudden you don't remember that you just drove through that section? It just becomes automatic. After a while, it happens to commuters a lot. We're driving the car every day. They just don't even after 100 times driving the same road or less. Certain sections of the road, they just don't even notice them anymore. They don't even remember. They're thinking about something else, because your ability to drive through that part of the road is inbuilt now in your nervous system. Your brain is part of your nervous system. It's just part of your nervous system, just like you're, moving your muscles. So the brain is just, and because it is part of your nervous system, you can train it just like you can train muscles. All you need to do is get it to repeat a certain behavior enough, and ideally use some emotions as well to activate that behavior on a physiological level, multiple physiological levels. And then your brain will build new pathways that get it to do new behavior. That's all that's happening. It's literally physical wiring in the brain is most of our thoughts. And when we all the trauma we've absorbed, because our nervous system is amazing at remembering everything bad that happened to us to try to avoid that from happening again. These are all just lines in the brain that are causing us to be upset about things. That are causing us to like, oh, this thing gets our attention. You know what? Like,
Yeah.
Kat and I are moving, right? We're moving house, and why are all these little arguments happening? Like what, like we had an argument today about how to move the plants to the new place, right? Like what was the point of that argument? Like it didn't, neither of us was actually unsafe. Neither of us actually needed to do any effort like defending our point of view. Why? What was the big deal? Well, our trauma gets activated. And if we were listening to our thoughts, we would have a whole argument about how to move the plants. But actually, what ends up happening, fortunately with us, because we practice this kind of thing, is that we notice, oh, I'm triggered right now. The thing that's happening right now that's upsetting me, that's not the thing that I'm actually upset about, because what's happening is my nervous system is just having a reflex to this moment. Yes. And the reflex is based on stuff from way in the past. So I should not listen to my thoughts right now. Instead, as you said, I can go inside and feel like, oh, I'm in pain. Something is hurt. My brain is saying danger. My brain is saying argue. My brain is saying defend because I don't feel okay. That's the reflex that's happening. So instead of listening to those thoughts, can I just go inside and find the part of me that's hurt? Can I give some peace to that part of me? Can I give some love to that part of me? Oh, and by the way, what is the part of you giving love to the part of you that's thinking I should be defending? What's happening here? What's happening here? So yeah, so keep going, Arno. You're onto something.
Amazing. Yeah, I think I have it from Tony Robbins, but like we have a highway to negative thoughts and a dirty road, like dirt road to positivity and positive things. And what should be, I was going to say the whole game of self-improvement, but what should be the whole game of health of self-improvement, which unfortunately it's not, should be to reverse that, to make it really easy to have positive thoughts and have a positive outcome on the world and on ourselves and on people around us, and detrain our minds to have negativity. And I love that you mentioned neuroplasticity, because that's when I got acquainted with this concept, man, it blew my mind. I felt that so beautiful, and that's one of the most miraculous things that I've come across, almost, I want to say, because it's like, it means that each and every one of us has the possibility to modify ourselves, not only to look the way we want. This we already know that if you go to the gym, your muscle, your body shape is going to change. If you eat a certain way, it's going to change. We know that. But we can do the same with the mind. And that thing that, when sometimes people say, well, I that's how I feel. I cannot control how I feel. Well, actually, yeah, you can. Because if you make this switch between the highway and the dirt road, and that's your automatic brain response is to consider external event as something positive, then guess what? The way you feel will be, you won't have to go in stress mode, defense mode, fight over moving plants and things like that. Or maybe it will happen much less often, because you would have trained your puppy, you will have trained your mind and your brain. Actually, it's one step further. You will have trained your brain to see the world, to interact with the world differently in a more positive way.
Yeah.
So,
yeah, it's a physical. Sorry, I really want to hone in on what you're saying. You said train the brain because it's a physical training.
Yes.
It's a physical training. We have this imagined split between the mind and the body. There is no split. The biological mind is the physical body creating thoughts. Anyway, sorry.
Guys, we're talking about the mind, and I bet your mind is blown after all this. And we want to hear from you. So if your mind is blown, or if you've been known that for years and it's boring as hell, let us know in the comments. Share your stories of how you train your mind, how you go from these high roads for negativity to a high road of positivity and positive thoughts. This is an interactive show. This is PeaCrea Live. And if you want to be there right from the start of the next episode, the best way to do that is to follow us on Instagram at Peaceful Creativity or subscribe to this channel. And there is actually a news which makes not missing the live show even more important. We have a Patreon now, and we've decided that the recording of the PeaCrea Lives episode are going to be Patreons only, because we really want people who look at that and who take action on their life based on all of the insight that we're sharing here. So if you want to become a patron, we really appreciate it. It allows us to create more of the content you love. And plus you join a great community of creators and leaders and people who are interested in this kind of topics. But if you don't want to join the Patreon, that's okay. But follow us on Instagram and YouTube so that you can participate in the conversation live. And let's go, David. You wanted to say something.
Yeah, no, thanks for doing that. We are going to still put some clips out. We're going to put some of our our good stuff out for totally on YouTube. But yeah, the full episodes, the full discussion is going to be for our community. And so you can, how do they find us on Patreon actually if they want to participate?
Yes. So you go to patreon.com/PeaCrea, so PeaCrea, and then you can join. We have three tiers, and you can get all the previous episodes. No, sorry, all the previous episodes are we leave them as they are. But if you subscribe, you will get all the new episodes in full directly there for as low as $3 a month, $3 a month. So don't hesitate and join us there. But our all back catalog, what was already free, it stays free. So all the episodes of PeaCrea Live,
maybe they might go unlisted once we get clips out. By the way, we already have some members in our Patreon. Do you want to do a quick shout out, and then we'll continue this puppy conversation?
Yeah. Okay, so I want to give a shout out to my boy Miguel. Also known as Donation Sad, an amazing musician. Also, shout out to my mom, who wasn't the first of our patron, and I think we had a third. I haven't checked, but we should have a third patron today. Her name is Susanna. So big up for your support.
Yes, thanks so much, guys. So the community is growing.
It is growing. Yeah. So. Let's go back to the topic of today, which is Your Mind, a Puppy. We are live. Ask your question. Share some insight. David, the floor is yours.
Yeah. Do you guys think that I'm talking bullshit with this idea that, your mind is a physical reflex? Most of your thoughts are a physical reflex. I think, let me know in the comments if you do, or if you think that the mind is something else. But here's the thing. That's the biological mind. There is another definition of the mind. And
since we're going into definition, I would like to make something clear because I think it's also an insight for me. There is the brain and there is the mind, right? Or what you call biological mind. Do you mean the brain or do you mean this translator?
The brain is, okay. What I mean by the biological mind is your nervous system and what your nervous system does. That includes creating emotions. That includes creating thoughts. Your biological nervous system is your physical biological mind. And as we said, and what I mean by the translator is that this system in your whole body, including your brain, but your nervous system is distributed in your whole body, this system translates the information available to you. And that information can come from your traumas. That information can come from your conditioned self. That information can come from your unconditioned self. That it's still there underneath all your conditioning. And maybe that information could even come, as some people say and have experienced, and I have experienced many times, maybe that information can also come from somehow outside yourself. Something like zaps you. And your mind translates that. Like Ray Bradbury, one of my favorite sci-fi writers, when interviewed about his writing process, he says, I never wrote anything. It all just was written through me. I didn't come up with it. It came through me. you know? And so and so many artists describe that, you know? So what's
Yes.
happening in that process? There's something happening in that process where information is coming into your body mind, and your physical brain and nervous system is translating that information into something you can do on the physical level. So that's what I'm talking about with when I'm saying your biological mind. I'm saying your physical nervous system and all of its activities.
Yeah, thank you for precising. And you are going to go to other kind of mind,
Well, yeah,
except this.
there is a mind. There is another form of mind, you know, and maybe we will get into that. But first, let's just connect the puppy analogy. Like I'm sure maybe you can see. I also like the puppy analogy because this physical biological mind is getting distracted all the time by stimulus, just like a puppy. You know what I mean? Like you put keys in front of a puppy's like playing with the keys. You know, you put food in front of the puppy's going to food. You know, you make a loud noise, puppy, danger. You know what I mean? There's the physical biological mind is constantly reacting to stimuli and just remembering everything, just storing everything, especially dangerous things, so that it can avoid those dangerous things next time. Yeah. So that's another way that it's like a puppy. And as you said, you know, another way that it's like a puppy is innocent, you know, just like
Yes.
you know, you don't blame a puppy for hiding under the bed when something crazy happens. You don't blame a puppy for barking or snapping if it feels like it's in danger. You don't blame the puppy for chasing the treat. You know, you don't blame the puppy for wanting to play or being confused. You know, your mind is just like that. The physical biological mind is just doing its programming. It's doing its
It's
reflexive
neutral.
action, and it's not its fault if you have like 1,000 negative thoughts a day. It's your fault. It's not the mind's fault. That's just a reflex based on the programming. So what we're trying to talk about here is how do we work with this? I mean, it's beautiful. It's constantly reacting to things. It's constantly having a reflex. And as we've mentioned, some of those reflexes are amazing. So how do we work with this physical biological system that, you know, that we call the mind, this physical biological system that is churning up these thoughts, emotions all the time? How do we work with that to, as you said, make it much easier to be on that feels good road than on
Yeah.
the does not feel good road? So maybe we can talk
Yeah.
about some of
So
that stuff.
yeah, let's get actionable. But first of all, thank you for sharing that, because again, the self-help world is a place full of wonderful people, and also there's a lot of information that can be misused, not in a manipulative way, that can reinforce this feeling of I'm not good enough, I need to improve myself, I'm not okay, I'm weird, which you are, and that's cool. It's great to be weird. I'm weird. David is super weird,
Super
and
weird.
that's great. He's fighting over plants. I mean, come on. And stopping a moment and being like, okay, this is a puppy. It's not my fault. This is a puppy. It's getting distracted. It's doing this and that. It's not my fault. It's not his fault. So now let's train this puppy and take control over it without blaming. You know, just, oh, come on, puppy. Come on, I'm going to show you how to do it. So thank you for sharing
That's
this
right.
very
You
important
love the
message.
puppy
Yes,
into its training. You know, you give the puppy love and guidance, and that's how you show the puppy how to operate well. That's also just like the mind.
yes, exactly. No blame here. Um, so there are so many things that you can do to do that, to go from these high roads, to go from this little dirt road of positivity to this highway of positivity. The first thing that probably come to my mind, at least, is a gratitude journal. Spending some time in the evening. I do it in the morning and in the evening, but pick a time and just reflect on the positive things that happen either during the day or the day before. And this is the most concrete advice I can give to someone who wants to make that shift from the dirt road to the highway, because you're literally writing down, oh, this was actually good today, I enjoyed that. And it might feel weird when you write it, because you will write some stuff that oh, the cashier smiled at me. Actually, now that I'm looking for positive things that happened today, this makes it on the list. I wouldn't have thought about that. Or this cloud looks like an elephant. That's pretty cool, you know. Or bigger stuff like, wow, I sold the house, or oh, I bought the new car. But that's I guess for me that would be the most actionable thing that one can do to make this transition, is writing down, reflecting back on the day or the day before, what good happened, you know.
Yeah, you got to give your puppy those treats, those gratitude treats, you know. And this is gratitude journal is one of the most well studied behavioral activities that has shown to actually increase happiness subjectively in people. So I think that's a great tip. That's a great tip. And do you have any like specific phrasing you use when you're doing the gratitude? Oh, by the way, I like that you talked about that it's a journal that you're writing, because you know, when you just think something in your head, that's actually a different process than when you write it down. Because when you write it down, you think it in your head, but then you physically put it on paper, and then you see what you put on paper. So it's a whole feedback loop that does not happen when you just think about it in your head. So that's why writing is one of the best ways to increase the effectiveness of how you're trying to train your mental puppy. Yeah. So do you phrase your, okay, go ahead. Yeah.
Yeah, I think there are some studies that say that writing on paper is actually even more effective than the way I do it, which is I type it on the computer.
Got it.
But I think maybe you, I don't remember if it's you or someone else who told me that if you actually write it, the hands to brain connection is even stronger, which helps like
build your nervous system pathways.
Exactly, help this neuroplasticity.
Yeah.
So is there a particular phrasing? Probably there are. At the moment, I don't use a particular phrasing. I'm just like, what am I grateful for? Actually, write it in English, which is weird because it's not my native language, but it comes more naturally. You know, I'm grateful.
French is not grateful language. French is a complaining language. I don't know.
Ouch. So what I'm grateful for today, what I'm grateful for yesterday. That's just how I phrase it, and then I just say. What I do use in terms of special phrasing, not to get too off topic, is when I want to put on paper something negative that's happened to me or something that I find unpleasant. For this, I have a special phrasing that helps differentiate myself from this experience. But as of the gratitude part, I just write, this happened and I felt like that.
Okay. So you write what happened and then you write what you felt.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. And I think that's great because that reinforces those positive feelings as well. That puts you back in that state for a second. And that's also reinforcing it in your nervous system. There's one other tip that I learned that I like a lot, which is after you say what you're grateful for, write the word because, and then complete the sentence. And that changes actually how my gratitudes come out. You know, like I'm grateful for the beautiful food I had today because it helps me be healthy, and I feel much better when I'm healthy. You know, and it creates like a whole sort of purpose to the gratitude that for me like makes it more impactful in my nervous system, and it trains my brain better. And one of the things that Katka and I do is we speak them out loud at the end of the day, you know, and to each other, and that helps a lot too, because if one of us forgets about the why, we could say, oh, why are you grateful for that? You know, and then you can explain it to the other person, and in explaining it, you connect with all these like really nice feelings of what your values really are, what's important to you. You know, so it's really reaffirming your own a more unconditioned perspective on life.
Plus, you do it with your partner, which is excellent for the couple as well. And for not only if one of you forgets something, but even if you both remember everything, the fact that you're sharing that, it creates an added value with this energy between you and Katka. So
Yeah.
that's fantastic.
It depends what you say you're grateful for, but usually yes. Usually yes.
I also like this point about adding the because it's true that at some point I can remember myself writing this gratefulness journal late and being like kind of a list. Okay, I need to put it there. It's like, yeah, my family is healthy. Yeah, this happened. It's good. Yeah, but putting the because force you to pause and really think, okay, why am I grateful for that? Oh yeah, because when this cashier smiled at me, it made me feel some connection. I felt connected. Or
Exactly.
when this cloud was looking like an elephant, so I'm happy because it's made me witness the beauty of the world, and other things like that. So the because thing is a really great point.
Yeah. Yeah. It's like, I'm grateful for I got let's say a client paid me. I'm grateful. I got a check, in my money in my bank account got added to my bank account. But why am I grateful? I mean, it's easy to just be like, yeah, of course I'm grateful for that. But why? Because, oh, that money helps me live the life I want to live. That money helps me approach more freedom. That money helps me do more work in the world that I like. Like, oh my gosh, now all of a sudden, that
Yeah,
thing that we're grateful
love
for
it.
is starting to empower, give us a lot, like connect really with our life force energy. So, yeah,
Amazing.
that's a really good way to
So
train the mind. Good puppy
so
training.
yeah, good puppet training indeed. What else? What's the first thing that came to your mind when we were talking about actionable way to train the puppy?
Good question, Arno, because this is I'm going to probably get on my soapbox here, but the then if
Soap?
you it's an expression in English that means like you're gonna get on you're gonna get on a box and give a speech, basically like go on a tirade, basically like
Oh, okay,
I'm gonna start
okay,
preaching. I'm gonna start preaching now. You know what I mean? So
okay. I'm
go to
ready.
the preacher.
Ready for the
I'll
box.
try to tone it down. But the if you realize that your physical mind, your physical biological brain and nervous system is having reflexive actions to information that it receives based on what it contains and based on what it contains, then the quickest way to change your thoughts is to change what's in your nervous system. Because then when stimulus happens, you will automatically think differently. You know, and when I first got into the personal development world, I was reading a lot about affirmations. And this is one way to train your thinking. You can say over and over again, like, I value myself and I love myself. I love myself is a very common affirmation in the personal development world because so many of our problems are actually come from the fact that we don't love ourselves. But you have to say that like 400 times a day to start making a dent in that like deep running brainstem physical level information that your mind has that says, I don't love myself. So, but there's another way. There are techniques you can use, and these are trauma release techniques. These are techniques you can use that go directly into the nervous system, that work with your subconscious, change the information you have in there, so that now when you have a stimulus or you're approaching the world, your thoughts and emotions are automatically different. The reflex is now different because you've changed the source information behind the reflex. So one of my favorite examples of one of these techniques is called havening. And havening is a technique that we explored on the show. In one of our first episodes, we actually interviewed a havening practitioner to talk about her experiences helping people let go of phobias, helping people let go of anxieties, helping people let go of the pain caused by traumatic events. The traumatic event is over, but they're still feeling the emotional pain of that in their lives. It's debilitating them. You can change the information in your subconscious mind so those reflexes don't happen anymore. So, and I'm actually getting certified in havening because I love it so much, and I know how much it's going to help people completely shift their experience of themselves in the world. So, people that are part of our community, that are part of our Patreon, will be able to find out how to experience havening, with me once I'm certified. Assuming I get certified, I have to go through a process. I have to do all these case studies now. I'm doing case studies with my friends, family, other people that are already my clients. I'm doing all these case studies of havening and to build up a whole knowledge base of how it really works experientially, and then I'll be able to share more of it with you all. But that's just one technique. There are lots of other techniques. There's thought field therapy. There's EMDR or EDMR. There's something called like functional mind therapy. There's all these therapies they're not based on talking about, talking through your past. They're based on you accessing your nervous system directly, the information in your nervous system directly. And when you change that, you will change your thoughts. You will be shocked at how much of your day-to-day automatic behavior that is just your default is actually caused by stored emotional pain. It's caused by stored emotional pain in your nervous system. And you can address this pain. And when you do, so your brain starts operating on a completely different wavelength.
Yeah, I mean, for now, I think that for some listeners, it might sound like, oh, what else? What are all these terms that I've never heard about? It's weird. But I'm convinced that some of these techniques will make it into mainstream medicine and mental health treatments over the next 10 to 20 years. It's going to become more and more the same way as now using microdosing of psychedelics is making its way in. More and more people talk about that and see the results on depression and things like that. I'm sure that techniques like the havening that I've experienced firsthand, thanks to the wonderful havening practitioner that we had on the show. I'm sure that it's going to be more and more present in society, and like in 10 years people will be like, gee, I wish I started earlier with that. Because I mean, you and I practice the presence process, which is a form of self-healing, which says exactly the same. Like, okay, you can talking with someone about your problems, about your tension, it has some value, right? At the very least, it's get out of you and it's expressed, and you can see that maybe it's not so bad, or or if it's bad, that maybe it's probably not your fault. But going inside and working on the emotional level, on the neurological level, is like such a shortcut compared to this traditional talking therapy. So that's
that's a great
thing.
resource you just mentioned, Arnaud. If you guys are interested in learning one way to access your subconscious and let some of this information that you're holding on to that's causing these reflective, painful emotions and thoughts, the presence process is one tool to do that. It's a book, and in this book it outlines a 10-week, basically a meditation and type process, but it's breath work. It's a breath work meditation. It's based on breathing, a specific type of breathing and a specific way to work with your mind. And you do it for 10 weeks, and he guides you through the process. And you will learn very quickly how your body both stores trauma and lets go of trauma as you work on this. And it's a very safe and gentle process. It can also be difficult. You will have resistance if you try to do it, because your nervous system resists, letting go of some of this stuff. This is why it's hard to convince someone of a new idea when they are holding on so much to another idea. Yeah. Our nervous system, our biological brain and nervous system is trying to control reality and has a picture of reality that it thinks is going to keep us safe. And that's where these reflexes, most of our thoughts are coming from. And so, like, look at the political situation in the United States right now. Do you think any of that, where all of that just division and intensity and insanity is coming from, basically people's emotional trauma? When you actually access the deeper, wiser, loving, calm, peaceful part of yourself that's underneath all that shit, you all of a sudden your opinions start changing about the other side of the political spectrum. Okay. That's just an example.
I have a perfect analogy for that. I think for all of you guys who watch porn, imagine how your opinion of porn changed before you came and after you came. before you came, you're so into it. That's the most important stuff in the world. You're like, oh my God, this is amazing. After you came, you're like, what? What is? It's like you're a completely different person, and your relationship to that thing that you're observing changed in 1 second. And the same way, if you're in an argument with your partner or with someone over a political issue, and depending on the state you're in, the words that you say, the ideas that are exchanged, they are day and night, like the effect that it has on you. Like you could have someone insult your favorite politician and be like all crazy and angry and go in his face. Or if you've integrated that part of your trauma, that person will say that this politician is an asshole, and you will be like, okay, I don't care, you know. This is the power of training the mind. This is the power of integrating this, of training that puppy, and of integrating those emotional responses that we have. It gives you more choices in your life.
Yeah, absolutely. That's where the free will starts. That's where the free will
That's
starts. You know, I think
amen to
the another thing we'll throw out there. By the way, we're about to end the show, everybody. So if you have any last minute comments you want to drop in or questions, get them in the chat, and we should see them. By the way, Arno, if you could help me monitor that, that'd be great, because we just want to make sure the software is working properly. But I'll throw in another tip for you. In addition, you know, gratitude journaling. You can take everything we talked about writing, you can extend that to other forms of writing. You can do a free writing. Anytime you have a problem, anytime you think you're stuck, anytime you notice you're judging a situation, looking at it a certain way, just get some blank sheets of paper and start writing about the situation. Just let your whatever comes come. Write the most heinous stuff, write the most beautiful stuff, write the weirdest stuff. Let that part of you express, and you will see very clearly on paper some of the stuff you're holding on to that's actually directing your thoughts, you know? So that's another one for you to look at. And you know, that analogy that you gave, Arnaud, is really good, because there are so many other similar examples that made me think of. Like, for example, have you ever tried to tell your partner, like, hey, maybe, have you ever thought about this? Like, why don't you try this idea? And they just resist it. It's like, you know, they didn't even really hear it. But then a friend says to them, hey, maybe you should try this. And they're like, oh yeah, that's a good idea. You're like, why? Why did that happen? Why did their brain filter it out when you said it, but it was able to accept it when a friend said it? You know, these are the kind of things that are happening to us all the time because of the physical reflexes of our mind. Do we want those things to be controlling our interpretation of the world? Do we want those things to be controlling our behavior and our decisions, and deciding what we're willing to act on, what we're willing to not act on? You know, this physical part of ourselves is, until we make the decision, I'm going to examine these physical reflexes that I call thoughts, and I'm going to examine these, and I'm going to choose not to follow them. I'm going to choose, if I don't want to, I'm going to choose to notice them and not believe them. If I don't want to, I'm going to choose to have a response from my own thoughts instead of just listening, following that train every time. Until we do that, your physical reflexes are controlling you. Just like this knee kicking out, you're going through your life like you're kicking out your knee to everything in your life, until you decide to make that decision, until we make that decision. And there are so many tools available to us. Just most people don't understand what thoughts really are. So I hope we landed that for you today. And I hope we gave you some tips. Do you want to summarize those tips? Arno, real quick, just list them. I think there were 3 things.
Oh, gee, I remember just 2. But basically, the idea is that your mind is not something negative. It's not a reason to blame it. There's no reason to blame it. It's just doing a neutral job. And this job is translating everything that your nervous system is producing as a reaction, all those reflex. So your mind is translating that into thoughts that you can comprehend. And sometimes what the nervous system is throwing at the mind comes from trauma. And sometimes it comes from another place, which is at times beautiful. So the whole game is to train this mind so that it makes its translation job in a better way, and that it helps you turn more ideas into something beautiful and helpful and useful for you and for the people you love and for the world. And so we talked about we talked about this analogy of most people have a highway for negative thoughts and a dirty road for positive thoughts, and we want to switch that. And ways that you can use to change this and to have a highway for positive things, positive thoughts, is the gratitude journal that we talked about, that you will reflect on the positive things that happened to you during that day or the day before, and you will stress out, or you will not only write what you're grateful for, but you will also write why you're grateful for that. For example, I'm happy that I signed a new client because it helps me live the lifestyle that I want. So that's one thing. Then David talked about addressing directly those various traumas inside, so that there is less work for your translator in a way, and make it easy for the translator to do his job. And that he mentioned, like the happening process. He mentioned something that sounded like EDM, but that's not EDM.
Yeah, EDMR.
EDMR.
EMDR maybe. Yeah.
Okay.
It's just 4 letters. Yeah.
Yes. And what is the third thing that you had in mind?
Oh, the third thing was just free writing. Free writing to let your subconscious express itself. And your emotions, I just want to talk a bit about that trauma thing. Your emotions are the same process that our thoughts. The only difference is your thoughts are being translated into part of the brain that can turn something into language, that can turn something into a plan, or that can turn something into an image, but it's still the reflex coming from the source information. Your emotions are also a reflex coming from your source information. It's just that emotions are the language of the subconscious. It's, they're a body reaction. So your physical body is just, emotions and thoughts both are just a translation of your physical nervous system. And they're a puppy. It's a puppy trying to survive. It's innocent. And can you watch what these translations are doing? And can you treat these translations with loving guidance so that these translations become things that actually help you in your life? And Arnaud listed them. And that's what our show was today. So I hope you guys all found it super valuable. Love your mind. Love that puppy, those puppy reflexes. Love those puppy reflexes into joy. And you will find over time that they automatically now your reflexes are different. That's like the most exciting thing for me, actually, Arnaud, is that we don't have to do all this heavy mental work. We don't have to jam new thoughts into our mind. We can just approach our nervous system with love and care, feel all the way down into what we're really feeling, write out what we're really thinking,
we missed this one.
What?
I don't feel like this is like probably the number one thing to change these pathways. Just feel, as you said, feel what's going on without judging, without blaming. Even if the thoughts don't compute, when there is something negative, like don't blame it, but just give it the gift of love through time. Just sit down and be with this feeling, even if you're not sure if you're angry or if you're anxious, just sit down and focus on what you're feeling, because that's working directly with the nervous system.
Yes.
And I don't think I don't know if we mentioned it. So
no.
That's another great.
Yeah. And that's you giving love to your own internal physical nervous system. And that's where your free will starts. And that's how you change it. So Good shit, Arnaud. Thanks everybody for listening. Why don't you hit us up with the outro?
Well, David, would you like to tell the people what they can do if they want to not miss the next episode?
Sure. Yeah, great point. So you subscribe to this channel if you want to get easy notifications when you're on YouTube that we have a live show coming up, because basically from now on, our live shows are going to be the only way to see the full episodes. If you're not part of our community. So we want to make sure that people who really want this content and who are willing to converse with us about this content and take action on this stuff are the one. That's who we're creating it for. So we're going to create this content for the community, and that community is starting on Patreon. So you You can find us on Patreon. Search Peaceful Creativity, and you'll find you'll find a way to support this work and be part of the group, and you'll get all the full episodes plus a whole bunch of other bonuses depending on which tier you sign up for. And but if you can. Joining a live show, if you catch us live, it'll still be available to everybody. But to do that, you got to subscribe on YouTube, or you got to follow us on Instagram, Peaceful Creativity. Or you can also get on our email list at peacefulcreativity.com/join the tribe. And there'll be a link for that in the outro. So lots of ways to follow and connect. And if you do decide to join our Patreon, thank you so much, because every little dollar that helps support this work gives us exponentially greater than that energy to keep putting stuff out there to try to help us all get more peace inside and more creative expression outside, so that we can all create that peaceful world and expressive world we really want to be a part of. So that's what that's what our
the first fuel is not the money. We do this because we love what we do. We want to bring this message to the world. It brings us a lot as well. I mean, during this very episode, I learned a lot about this theme, and I brought the theme, but just conversing about it with David is incredibly valuable for me, and hopefully for you as well. But it generates a lot of costs doing that. We need to use several tools which cost money. We are collaborating. We have someone who works with us. That's also generates some cost. So as David said, every time you join our Patreon, you really help us financially, but also emotionally and psychologically, because we feel, okay, people actually care of what we do. So that's important. You're giving us much more than money when you subscribe to Patreon.
Yeah, and hopefully we're giving you much more in return as well compared to what you subscribe, because we're trying to make a community that really can help change the way people experience life and act in the world together, and learn specific skills around peacefulness and creativity that do that. So, these skills are best learned as a community, and that's why we're doing it this way. And so in that community, also, if you become part of the community, you get to decide what the community does. We're going to be having the community members vote on what the community produces, what we produce as content for you, but also what we produce as tools, opportunities, groups, live calls, these kind of things to help us all navigate these crazy times that we find ourselves in. So if you're interested in that, hit us up. And, this amazing person, her name's Chris. She's helping us with helping us with a lot of our branding and social media and things. And you're going to see some of her work in this outro that I'm going to play now. Get ready for the epic outro, everyone. See you next time.
Bye-bye.
Thank you for watching.